Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the rise and fall of Alexander the Great. We'll look at some of the ways in which he became the Great and how he kind of tumbled down from being the Great. We'll also look at some of the lasting impacts that he had over the Grecian culture as well as other cultures around him. So make sure you're in your interactive notebook and you're following along. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're on page 6 of your interactive notebook, again, talking about Alexander the Great. So our essential question for today is, how did Alexander the Great conquer the Persian Empire and what were the effects? So let's talk about how Alexander came to be. The territory north of Greece was known as the Kingdom of Macedonia, and it was ruled by King Philip II. He was actually born in Greece and always dreamed of ruling it. So when he grew up, he came back to Greece and took over. He decided to use his army, he invaded, and he was very successful. The Greek city-states weren't able to unite against him until it was too late, and in 338 BCE, the Macedonians defeated Greece, and he becomes the king of Greece as well as Macedonia. 2 years later, however, unfortunately, he was assassinated. So his power was transferred to his son, Alexander, who was only 20 years old. He was very well trained and quite an ambitious young man. As we talked about in our last lesson, he was also tutored by Aristotle. So again, well trained in both the military as well as academics. He goes on and starts to conquer. That was his plan. He goes in, he defeats the Persians once and for all. He defeats the Egyptians. He's actually crowned pharaoh in Egypt as well. He just creates this vast empire. He creates the city of Alexandria. There's actually multiple cities of Alexandria because he wants to name everything after him. Alexander, Alexandria. And he also pushes east into India and conquers there as well. So again, like I said, he carves out this very vast empire. On the way home from India, he plans on how he's going to govern his empire. And unfortunately, this is one of the mysteries of the world, he suddenly falls ill and he dies at the age of 32. So really, he was only in power for about 12 years, and he was able to conquer, as you can see on this map, a very large chunk of land. So all of this territory, in this kind of like shaded tan-ish region area, this was all of his land, all that he conquered. So a huge empire for a guy that's in his late 20s. Like, I haven't conquered that much. I haven't accomplished that much stuff in my lifetime. My goodness. So again, ambitious is probably the understatement of the century. So what happens after Alexander passes away? What's going to happen? What's his legacy, I guess we should say. So one of the biggest things, and we'll talk more about this on the next slide, we'll define what it means. He blended the East and the West, and it becomes known as Hellenistic culture. He was able to merge not only the Greeks, but he's able to merge it with all of those different empires that he conquered and kind of unite them into one kind of a culture. Alexandria in Egypt becomes a huge city, and it contained one of the world's best and largest libraries. We have new status and opportunities for women in society that we hadn't seen before in Greece. And then after he passes away, they have to find a way to divvy up his empire. What are they going to do with it? So they decide to divide it up according to 3 of his generals. Antigonus, he ruled in Macedonia, which again, remember, that's where King Philip had originally come from. And then he takes another general, Ptolemy. Ptolemy decides to rule in Egypt. And then Seleucus rules the old Persian Empire. So we've got those 3 areas. They're divided up into 3 chunks that are all going to be ruled by those 3 different men. The last thing I want to talk about, which was a very important part of Alexander's legacy, is he's able to blend these 2 cultures, like I said. So we had Hellenic versus Hellenistic cultures. And if we take the 2 down side by side and kind of describe what they look like and compare and contrast them, Hellenic, the word actually means Greek. And with this, if you were of the Hellenic lifestyle or culture, people were pretty much all Greek or born in Greece. People tended to stay in the city-state or in the polis. They kind of didn't move away or, roam anywhere else. They had what was known as the perfect man, and this was really apparent in their art. Anytime, sculpture, everything, that like chiseled body, and perfect not only in like physical characteristics, but also mental characteristics. Like you were very smart, you were logical, you were educated, you had a perfect, pristine physique, like you were just the perfect man. And again, like I said, you can see a lot of this in their art, the way in which men were sculpted. It's just like, holy crap, like rock hard abs and like the muscles and the crate, like, whew. That was considered the perfect, the Greeks were considered the perfect man. And then also, as we've talked about, the women's traditional role was to stay home and take care of kids. So that was the Greek lifestyle. After Alexander takes over and he starts to blend these cultures, we have more of what's called Hellenistic culture. The word Hellenistic means like the Greek. So it's not 100% Greek, but it's similar to, or it's like them. With this, we had a multicultural nation. So it's not just Greeks. We actually combined 4 different areas. We have Persia, India, Greece, and Egypt, all of the different places that Alexander had conquered in. People here in the Hellenistic world, they actually travel around. They're not tied to the polis. They go live in different places. They go to different places all throughout that vast empire. So they're not really tied to one place as much as the Greeks or the Hellenic people were. This is here, instead of having the perfect man, we have the real man. People are a little bit more realistic. They realize that people aren't perfect, and we have a more realistic view of what a man and woman are supposed to look like. And then lastly, women in a Hellenistic culture, as we talked about with Alexander the Great, there's more opportunities. Women are not necessarily tied to the home. They're given larger roles in society than they were in the Hellenic culture. So Alexander the Great, although he was only around for a short period of time, he does have a lasting impact on the Greeks and the culture going forward. He's also going to be a model for future leaders to look back on, especially like Napoleon, which we'll talk about in future lessons. People wanted to be just like Alexander because he was great. Thanks for watching, and make sure you tune in for our next lesson.